Welcome back to my channel. So today I want to share with you the top 5 mistakes that I have seen junior and aspiring data scientists doing during the interviewing process. And believe me, I know that interview is one of the most stressful experiences for anybody building their career, regardless of the domain. But I would say, after looking at about hundreds of people who I interviewed, I can summarize 5 typical mistakes that they do. And today I want to share with you those 5 typical mistakes and what you can do in order to avoid them, or at least compensate for them. This will really help you to boost your interviewing experience to a next level and actually convince a lot more interviewers that you are a suitable candidate for this position. So please stay tuned and watch until the end. The number 1 mistake that I have seen people doing during their data science interviewing experience is not to think enough about the question or a problem that's been asked of them.
No! God, please, no! No! No!
And actually, this is the, let's say, situation that happens to the data scientists regardless of their career level, from junior to very senior ones. And this is normally happens because when we are being interviewed, we are in such an intense and very stressful experience that our sensation is that whenever we've been asked something, we have to come up very quickly on the spot with the right solution. So my typical advice to the candidates dealing with this situation is, first thing you need to do is to calm down and try to ask more questions back to the interviewers, trying to understand what exactly they want to understand or learn or build a model, whatever, right? So you need to understand problem very well before you try to solve it. What happens if you don't do that is that you will straight away try to answer to a question that you have in your mind, or you try to resolve a problem that you think you got from the interviewers, and this will lead you to the path where interviewers will see that you're actually answering something else. They're going to try to rescue you by asking some leading questions or putting some suggestions, trying to kind of put you back on the track. But because again you are so much in your thoughts and your kind of thinking process, what happens is that you just don't hear them well enough, and also you lose time, the very precious time, because you just have, let's say, 1 hour or maybe 45 minutes with them. So the more they spend time rescuing you, the less time you have to actually showcase your skills and knowledge. So this is my tip number 1. Try to understand the problem or a question that is being asked of you before you answer that question. My tip number 2 is not thinking about model evaluation. And this is actually speaking about the model evaluation both online and offline. So this is very common. I see that people just build a model without thinking through how they're going to evaluate them, or they just say, I'm just going to split this data set into test and train, or do some sort of cross-validation or whatever. Well, the actual thing, to get this question right, is to think about the next step. So once you've built your model, and we call this build modeling offline, then how you're going to do 2 more things, at least 2 more things, let's say. So the first one is about evaluating model on, in production, on real online data, let's say, or the data that comes in real time. And the second piece is actually evaluating the business performance or the business impact of the model that you put into production. So whenever you've been asked this question about model evaluation, think about not only the thing that you did to do the, simple train test thingy, but also what next. And this what will get you multiple extra bonuses from the interviewers. Most common mistake number 3 is essentially using a very fancy model without good justification for using this. And this is just a pain point for every single data scientist interviewing today, because I've seen dozens of candidates, hundreds of candidates jumping to the most sophisticated model or the most sophisticated methodology, trying to address a very simple question. So my general rule of thumb is that if you can build your model with the simple approach, that will be, probably the most scalable, the most easy to put into production, will get you a lot of gains in terms of speed. So start with the simplest method. if you really want to showcase your knowledge of the more advanced methodologies, you can mention them in the end, let's say, and say that once you have your, let's say, baseline model, you can try to think about more complex solutions. But in principle, start simple, and it will also save you a lot of time on, going deep dive into the complex methodologies. Common mistake number 4: not acknowledging enough biases in the data or in the way you evaluate model enough. This is so typical. So the most experienced interviewers will always ask you about different sort of biases that are in the data or in the model itself or in the way you're putting this model in production, and try to really understand whether you can spot those biases. Why this is very, very important is because a lot of your stakeholders eventually, who are not data scientists, will not really know about those biases. So you are the one in the position to really tell them about this, and if you don't see those biases yourself, it will eventually lead to building a model that doesn't do the job it's supposed to do. So if you want to really upgrade your performance on the interview, go online, and I'm also going to put some of the links below to read about different types of biases that can be there in the data, in the models, in the evaluation processes, and think about it when you are replying to the interviewing question or problem. The tip number 5 is being irresponsive, let's say, to the feedback of the interviewers. So let me get it straight. A lot of interviewers are there as well to help you. So it's going to be very rarely where you will see that interviewer really want to put you in a position where you cannot get through the interview. Also, interviewers usually try to help you and give you some leading questions or some suggestions and so on. But what I see often happening is that for the junior candidates is that they close up. And instead of actually listening to the suggestions that you give them, they try to defend and protect their point of view. This is not a great strategy. Normally, the people who interview you, they thought about these problems already multiple times, and therefore, if they give you some suggestions or considerations to think about, they do it for a good reason. So it's better open up your ears and really listen carefully about different leading questions. There is another important thing that all of the data scientists who interview evaluate is how actually easy you are to work with in terms of getting and receiving the feedback, and if what they see is the kind of protective, very defensive strategy, it will not like you're going to make a great teammate or someone who is easy to give feedback to. So just bear in mind that the more feedback they give you, the more, let's say, appreciative of this feedback you should be. So here are my 5 tips. Please put your comments below. I will be happy to answer to all your questions and maybe to dive deeper in some of the points which I mentioned, because obviously I want to make this video really short. But if you want your interviewing experience to succeed, just follow these 5 rules and you already will be on a very different level compared to the other candidates. Thanks a lot for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.